So good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good evening. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. Welcome, folks. Perhaps on the Q&A as you sign in, you might just like to put a note as to where you're joining us, from. This is the campfire on trusting, hoping, and serving in a pandemic. Hey, I see some familiar names from the States and from Egypt. One from Belgium, I think, or the Netherlands. A few from the UK. Welcome, everyone. We're just going to allow folks to sign in and get online. Perhaps you might like to just have a practice with the Q&A. Perhaps just put a note in there to say where you're from. Carlo, I can't see the Q&A bits as they're coming up, so I'm not able to read those out. I see we've got nearly 30 with us now, more than 30 in fact. Welcome everyone. We'll just give a couple more minutes for people to sign in. This is the campfire for Jyoti on trusting, hoping, and serving in a pandemic. Welcome. If you'd just like to pop a hello on the Q&A, say where you're from. And then we'll do some introduction. Hi, Carla. Who have we got?
Yes, so we have from Bangladesh, Egypt, Australia, Switzerland, United States, South Africa, Lebanon, Portugal.
I see a familiar name from KL too, from Malaysia. Good. So I think we'll begin. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. This is the campfire, the Jyoti campfire on trusting, hoping, and serving in a pandemic. One of the reasons for having this campfire is that we thought that for many young people, actually including some of us maybe who aren't so young, the sort of situation that we're experiencing at the moment is new in our part of the world, even though we know that it's, in other parts of the world that's not the case, that many of our brothers and sisters there are used to struggling. It's also not unusual in world history, and many religious traditions have captured or managed to bring together ways in which people of the past have coped with difficult times. So this campfire is just an opportunity to explore some of those things that are in the different religious traditions of the world that have given other men and women throughout the ages and all over the world a sense of meaning for the difficulty they experience, and that's enabled them to continue to trust and to hope. So I'd like to introduce us. My name's Father Jonathan. I'm from the UK. In fact, as I look out from my window at the moment, I see Charterhouse School, where Baden Powell went to school a bit more than 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago now. And I'm joined by my colleagues from 4 different WOSM regions. So, Rabbi Peter, would you like to say hello and say where you're from?
Good morning and hello to everybody. At least it's morning here. I'm Rabbi Peter Hyman. I've been involved with scouting since I was 2 years old. My father was a scoutmaster. I live in Maryland, which is on the east coast of the United States, about an hour from Washington, D.C. And Father Howe has been to my home, and he knows it's a pretty nice place. I mean, the area, not the house necessarily.
Thank you, Peter. Shabbat Shalom.
Omivarach. Thanks, Jonathan. Glad to be a part of it.
Troll, good morning.
Morning. Hello to everyone around the world. My name is Troll. It's not my given name. My parents weren't that cruel. It's my scouting name. I'm from Bury in the northwest of England in the UK, although today I'm wearing my Bandlag Islenska Skarta Icelandic uniform. I'm the Secretary General for the World Buddhist Scout Council, and I, in that capacity, assist the WASM in matters of a Buddhist nature at world level. Thank you.
Thank you, Troll. Ali, good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon from the Maldives. I'm Ali, and I'm from the Maldives. And currently, I run a scout troop in my local island.
Thank you, Ali. Massi, good day to you. Massi, are you with us? We're hoping that we might have Massi Wallace with us. Massi is a scout leader in Zimbabwe, and is now ordained an Anglican priest. I had the pleasure of meeting Massi at an interreligious symposium that we had in South Korea. So I do hope Massi will be able to join us, but I think his internet connection might be a bit intermittent. So, but anyway, hopefully he'll manage to come to us. So as we begin, perhaps I could invite you again using the Q&A, just to share a little bit about some of the people that you know who in the past or in the present have managed to trust, hope, and serve in difficulty. What were the things maybe that helped them? What stories, examples, or principles or values helped them to get through that? So could I ask you, perhaps while we listen also to our presenters in just a moment, to share some of those things. So I'll give you a minute to do that, and then I'll ask Father Peter if he would, I'll ask Rabbi Peter if he would kick off for us.
Certainly.
So Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Father Jonathan. Good morning. Trust, hope, encourage, inspire. On the broad scheme of things, this has been my experience in scouting in general. But the truth is, there have been moments where all of those things in our lives are tested. And certainly from a perspective of right now, given where we are against this crazy and unprecedented pandemic, what comes to mind is a saying that is popular with the rabbis, but it's also popular in general use. And the saying is this: "This too shall pass." Right? As a matter of fact, there's several old. I won't get into that, but we are in a point in time right now where we are being tested. And we are being tested in ways that none of us ever thought we would be tested. And we need three things. We need calm, we need creativity, and we need faith, hope, belief, trust. And those things really provide a foundation upon which we build community, which we connect with, how we connect with each other. And they provide us a way of looking at the world and the world around us right now in the midst of this pandemic that provide us with insight. There will always be challenges. There will always be things that test who we are as individuals and test who we are as people and test who we are as scouts. And the question is, how do we respond? And if we respond with those principles, with those elements, we will do what we've always done as scouts. We will rise up, persevere, and create and establish a role model for the world around us. I'll have more to say, but if that's a start for now anyway, Jonathan.
Thank you, Peter. Perhaps we might come back to you when we come to Q&As
Sure.
a bit later on.
Sure.
Actually, one thing, Peter, I might like to come back to you on would be maybe to say a little bit about how did the Jewish people manage to keep Pesach during the Shoah?
Yeah, sure.
During the hardest of the
yeah,
hardest.
that was a challenge. Absolutely.
So I might come back to you later on that,
That's fine.
that particular bit. Thank you.
That's fine.
Troll.
Hello, Jonathan. Right, I'm Buddhist, which means that unlike my friends here from Abrahamic theistic traditions, Buddhism is non-theistic. We do not believe in a God. We do not believe in a supreme being. So from that perspective, we don't have a history of prayer, because from our perspective, there's no one to pray to. In Buddhism, we have what's called the first noble truth, which is dukkha, and that's the truth of suffering. All life is suffering, stress, pain, and unhappiness. Now, I know that sounds quite negative, but it's not getting what you want can be suffering. Boredom can be suffering. And what it's saying is the life that we live is called samsara. And life itself, you never get what you want. And that's what the dukkha means. Now, from a Buddhist perspective, all the people who follow theistic traditions, you get a single ticket, because when you die, if you're a good person, you get to where you want to be. We believe in rebirth, so we get a season pass. So we keep coming back again and again. So from a Buddhist perspective, we want to stop that so we can enter nirvana. Now, in Mahayana Buddhism, there's what is called a bodhisattva, which means the enlightenment being. And the bodhisattva ideal is to try and improve our world to the best of our ability. So it's based on a realistic recognition that the world is imperfect and it's likely to remain that way. But as long as there's ignorance, hatred, jealousy, pride, and selfishness, we're living in an imperfect world. There was a monk from India, a Buddhist monk called Shantideva in the 8th century. And he said, if there is a remedy when trouble strikes, what reason is there for despondency? And if there's no help for it, what use is there in being sad? In Buddhism, what we try and focus on is compassion for all life. So when you see, if anyone sees pictures of Tibet and you have what people say prayer flags and prayer wheels, even though we don't pray, what that is, they have a mantra inside. So in Buddhism, we have a lot of mantras like Mani Padme Hum, Om Vajrasattva Hum. And we basically saying, when you spin the wheel or when the air hits when the wind hits the prayer flag, it's saying we want long life, health, and happiness for all sentient beings. And the idea being is that those blessings or wishes, if you wish, will go around the world. So I think as scouts, we need to really focus on compassion for all life. One of the things that I've noticed recently when this pandemic first started was people said, it's okay, it only affects old people. It's like, well, why don't you like old people? I don't understand the concept behind that. Every life is a life regardless of what faith, So, yeah, that's my initial thoughts on that.
Joel, thank you very much. Folks, as we listen to our co-presenters, if you have questions and things that you'd like to ask of them a bit later, do pop them up using the Q&A button. Probably find it around the edge of your screen if you're on a laptop or computer. You'll find it down the bottom. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for questions and further discussion a bit later on. Ali, welcome. Ali, you're...
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. So in a Muslim perspective as well, we've been told that we'll be put through a lot of trials and tests. And in Surah Al-Baqarah, in the verse 155, the God has said, we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. And who, when disaster strikes them, they say, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him we will return. And those are the ones upon whom are blessings from their Lord and mercy, and it is those who are the rightly guided. So in a Muslim perspective, we've been told we'll be put through a lot of trials, a lot of tribulations, and for us, it's to become patient. And the Prophet has said the greatest reward comes with the greatest trial. So when Allah loves people, He tests them. Whoever accepts that wins His pleasure, but whoever is discontent with that earns His wrath. And again, in the Surah Al-Baqarah, in the verse 153, the God is told, what should we do? And He said to seek help through patience and prayer. And indeed, Allah is with the patient. And when you talk about the patient, I think the best example is probably about Prophet Ayub or Job. So God afflicted Prophet Job with he lost all his money, his kids died, and he was severely sick. Very patient. He kept on praying. He kept on believing. He kept on hoping that this will pass, and he did not utter like a single word of complaint. And he was in an extremely pathetic condition, and he prayed. So in the Surah 21, verse 83, the Prophet Ayub or Job said, the truly adversity has afflicted me, and you are most merciful of all who show mercy. And in the verse 84, in the whole, I think as Muslims, we need to keep on believing, and as this is a test, this is a trials, and we need to be patient and keep on praying. I think that's all what I want to say right now. Thank you, Father Jonathan.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much. Massi, is Massi with us? Okay, so as Massi's not able to join us, I think I'd just like to share a few things from a Christian perspective as to how it works for, well, really how it works for me. And I think my starting point would be to say that it begins with knowing that God has loved each one of us into being. That idea of God as the creator, and God doesn't create anything that He doesn't love and isn't going to care for, and doesn't have some sort of plan for. The scriptures and the tradition also tell us that God has promised us that nothing will come between us and His love. A sense of security in His promises. Hey, Massi, I'll come to you in a moment. The scriptures tell us too of how throughout history God has been faithful to that solemn promise, and of how He's with us even if we don't always see it. I'm mindful of how St. Mark tells the story of Jesus going out on the Sea of Galilee with His disciples, and a storm blows up, and we find Jesus asleep in the back of the boat, and the disciples start to panic, and they say to Him, "Don't you care that we're going down?" And Jesus wakes up and He says to the sea, "Calm down," and the sea calms down. And He says to the disciples, "Don't be afraid. but why did you have so little faith? Why didn't you trust in me? And locally here in England, to be a priest was high treason for a couple of 100 years, and many Catholics went to prison or were killed because of their faith. Mindful too of Christians at the moment in North Korea and other parts of the world where they need to live their faith in a hidden way. Mindful too of Christians I met in the Upper East region of Ghana, subsistence farmers in sub-Saharan Africa, and their deep faith and sense of trust in God. I think if they managed to do it, if they managed to listen to the words, "Peace be with you, do not be afraid," then I have a sense that maybe those will help me too. Massey, is your connection working? Perhaps would you be able to share a few thoughts with us? Not at the moment. Okay, if it comes back up, Massey, then we'll bring you in. A few questions here. One for Troll. Thank you. It's been answered already. Troll, do you want to just speak the answer that you gave to Sandra? I presume, Carla or Raoul, I presume that can participants, can attendees see the answered Q&As?
If it is sent not privately, yes, they can see it.
Okay, good. So I won't answer those that have been answered by text, and I'll leave you to have a look at those. A question from Andre that I think I'd like to offer to everyone. Is it natural for us to question our faith or question our beliefs during this period? Should we see this as something healthy and refreshing? Ali, can I go to you first? Ali, your microphone's muted at the moment.
All right. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Andre is asking, is it natural for us to question our faith during this period? Should we see this as something healthy and refreshing? I think a lot of people would question themselves in these kind of hard times about our faith, and I think it's very human, but I think it is a very healthy and refreshing, and so the prophet has said, like, paradise is surrounded with difficulties and hell is surrounded with desires. So I think at these times we are really being tested, and this is the times we really need to keep on believing, keep on trusting, and keep on hoping that this will pass through. Keep on, as the God has said, to be patient and keep on praying. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Troll and then Peter.
Again, we don't have faith in the same. I suppose you could say that, and the Buddhist teachings or the Buddha Dharma is something that we follow, and therefore, we don't have faith in the same way. I've known to have faith in from a theistic perspective. Should we see something as healthy and refreshing? As I said, we believe that life is suffering. One of the first things I did as a Buddhist was accept my death, which again sounds very negative. But again, once you've accepted that, then you can get on with life. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen. So I don't worry about it in the same way as such, because I know it's going to happen. So again, not very happy, but yeah. So from that perspective, is it healthy and refreshing? I will put that question out to my theistic comrades here regarding, in your different traditions, is it healthy to question faith? I know for me it doesn't really have the same resonance as such.
Thank you. Rabbi Peter, you're muted at the moment. Peter, you're muted at the moment. So I'll just give a there we go. Oh, hang on, that's it.
Is that
That's it.
unmuted? Okay, thank you. To question, at least from a Jewish perspective, one must question. And one must question because in spite of the fact, or not in spite of the fact, but we believe that everything comes from God and all is good, but human beings, and we see this right from the Garden of Eden story, human beings have an ability to either continue and participate in the good or not. The questioning is important because it says that there's a human component to this. It's not sufficient enough to say God sent the plagues. And obviously, as we know, this is, and it's interesting that the celebration of Passover is coming in a few days, where we deal with the biblical, the 10 plagues that are talked about in the Bible. But the questioning leads to human responsibility and human accountability, right? Why did this happen? It is not sufficient enough to say God wanted it to. There are other reasons for that. And the questioning helps us focus. It helps us deal with it, whatever the it may be, in this case, the pandemic. But and it provides the realization that we have something to do with the destiny of human beings. It doesn't mean that we don't embrace God. It doesn't mean that there is a sense of comfort and embrace in the concept of faith. There is, but at least from a Jewish perspective, there has to be human accountability. It is not sufficient to say God wanted it that way.
Thank you, Peter. I think if I was going to answer that question, is it to doubt is very human, and in the Christian tradition, we see doubt even in the lives of the saints. So it's part of the story of those people who we recognise as being, managing to do this particularly well. There's a question that a couple of people have answered that I'd like to put to the panel, and it's mainly for monotheistic ones, but Troll, I'll come to you at the end for a comment. Do we see this pandemic as a punishment or a curse from God in some way? Or is it a test of humanity to see how people might work together despite the individuality, in individualism in the world? I'm going to have a first punt at answering, and I want to go back to the prophet Job, whom Ali introduced us to as well, because the story of Job really serves to say that we don't know, and it begins by Job being tested, by having all sorts of nasty things happening to him, and then we see his three so-called friends come along, who try to persuade him that he must have done something wrong to deserve these nasty things happening to him. And at the end of it, God says to Job, "Look, do you understand a duck-billed platypus? Do you understand Do you understand, Job, how a World Scout Jamboree works? Well, he didn't say that, but he might have if he knew what a World Scout Jamboree was like. He said, Job, do you understand what makes scouting the sort of thing that it is? And Job can't answer that. And so God says, well, how do you expect to know how the world works? And then God restores peace and prosperity to Job. So I think two parts of an answer that I would make to it would be that our understanding is that, the Christian understanding is that there is a brokenness in the world that comes out of the human ability to mess things up. And that affects the whole world in which we live. But that we shouldn't be understanding the hardships that we experience as being, in particular, cause and effect for our particular wrongfulness. So that would be, I think, the bit I would like to do. Peter, to yourself, then Ali, then Troll.
Yeah, just one quick comment, and Jonathan, about Job. The book of Job is remarkable, and you're right for bringing it up. But if you recall, it begins by God and the prosecutorial angel, sometimes referred to as Satan, but I don't want, that's, at least in Jewish tradition, that's not the devil, but this angelic presence that responds to God. They make a deal. They make a deal. And this poor guy, Job, who is righteous and decent, and, you know, that shows the fragile nature of existence, whether it's God and the angel determining what happens to us or another force. The ultimate reality, and I think this is true for us as people of faith, but also true for us as scouts, is it's what happens. How we respond to it is the broader and more powerful message. If we succumb, okay, we succumb. If we stand up and rise above it and move through it, that too is the important reality. Just a thought.
Thank you. Ali. Ali?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. So yeah, I just also want to say that, like, I mean, rather than a curse, I mean, the first verse I was saying from Quran, it's also very clear that we're going to be tested with fear, hunger, loss of wealth, and lives, and even fruits. So I think it's very clear that this is a trial for us, and it's for us to be patient, to keep on praying, and to go through this. And there's even a prophet has said, like, when Allah wills good for his slave, he hasn't the punishment for him in this world. So yeah, I think that's all what I want to say right now.
Okay, thank you. Troll.
Again, we don't have the same concept. As such, one thing I can say is Buddhists believe in karma, which is the law of cause and effect. So it refers to actions of body, speech, and mind that spring from mental intent, called cetana, which bring about a consequence called vipaka. So if you act in a positive way, you'll get a positive effect. If you act in a negative way, you'll get a negative effect. And Buddhists believe that in your actions in one life will determine your rebirth in the next. So even though that we understand that the wheel of life, samsara, is imperfect anyway, it's how you as an individual react. So effectively, my words, thoughts, and deeds should not have a negative impact on any living being. So that's our starting point. So anything like this, for example, at the moment, you can see how around the world, I think one thing I'm very clear about is that religion's great until people get involved, and then it goes a bit skew with. So human nature is human nature. You know, we can see at the moment that there's, like, you know, countries scrabbling for resources that they need and trying to outbid each other, and prices going up and everything. That's human nature. That isn't going to change anytime soon. But it's how, as we as scouts, can look at, like, you know, we need to be the best we can be. You know, so I need to be the best Buddhist I can be. You need to be the best Catholic you can be. And it's how as we as individuals can make an impact. Because if we let our basis human natures, if we follow those, then that's it, you know. So yeah, karma.
Question, a short question. I'll just, no, come back to it. There was an American philosopher called John Caputo, has an interesting little book on the title, I think it's On Religion, published by Routledge. And he raises the question in terms of doubt, as saying that most people think that what makes a religious person is someone who's found the answer. And he looks to a saying of St. Augustine, a Christian saint from the 3rd century, who says, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you, O Lord." And from this restlessness, he says that actually what marks religious people out is not that they have the answer, but that they have found a way to cope with not having the answer. That religion works perhaps more like poetry or art or music. It doesn't give things that you can write down in black and white and straight lines that are easy, but it manages to communicate something to the heart and the soul that enables us to journey through life. Good. Now then. Just to give a few things off the chat, some of the examples of a trust and hope that have been mentioned. One or two people mentioned the example of their parents, and someone else has talked about an anonymous attendee has mentioned the Aquile Randaggie patrol active in Italy as a clandestine movement during fascism there. And so lots of examples of people in scouting who've managed to trust and hope. Peter, can I come back to you about the Shoah? And then I'd just like to finish maybe by asking a question of what's the relationship between trusting and hoping and serving for each of us? So, Peter.
So sure, Jonathan, in terms of the Holocaust and the Shoah and the celebrations, it was difficult. It was difficult for obvious reasons. However, one of the amazing things that I've learned about that time period in history and how those who were able to, the Jews in Europe who were not put into concentration camps, they were able to make matzah, the unleavened bread, and even in the camps, we are told that obviously not officially and not with the authorities' permission or help, there was always a sense of the holiday, the definition of who we are, what the holiday imposes on us, and how it inspires us. So it was a challenging time. Challenging is an understatement. It was a horrific moment in history, showing the worst of humanity. Yet in spite of that, there were people who did trust and did hope, and even for a moment suspended the tragedy for themselves. And what was the second part of the question?
The second part of the question, moving on, is What's the relationship for you between trusting and hoping and serving?
You know, let me start with this. Each of us has a different uniform on. I have an American uniform. Troll has the British. You have a Class B. When I look at somebody who I don't know, we know each other well. That's not the point. But when I see somebody in a Scout uniform, I immediately assume that I know something about that human being. I know that person has been trained, shares a set of values that I embrace, and we have a commonality of experience as Scouts. That provides a foundation for me. And trusting and hoping, I trust not only in the promise of Scouting, but ultimately in the promise of God that God gives us as the theological folk. And that inspires me. Not only does it inspire me, it also provides boundaries in which I am, as a person of faith, I am obligated to work within. You know, there's an expectation. If I hope and I trust and I embrace the requirements of faith, just as I do the requirements of Scouting, there is an expectation that I will behave and approach the world in very specific ways that may just set me apart from those around me. I don't do that from an egotistical perspective. I do that because that's the consequence of my embrace of those values, those principles, and those ideals.
Thank you, Peter. Troll, we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to move fairly quickly.
Just which question am I answered again?
How does trusting and hoping lead to serving? Where does serving come from?
Well, having compassion for all life means that you're there for everyone. So, you know, no matter who you are, what you are, I have to, you know, be positive towards you, have compassion for you, be concerned about you.
Good, thank you. Ali? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I want to say keep on believing, hoping and to pass through these trials. And also at the prophet's time, so there was this person, so he did not tie his camel because he trusted in God. But the prophet said, tie the camel first and then trust in God. So I think it's yes, we need to be patient. We need to keep on praying, making dua, supplication, but also we need to take precautions. We need to follow the guidelines by the health authorities, stay home, keep on washing your hands and trying to flatten this curve. Yeah, that's what I want to add at the end.
Thank you, and a very important reminder. Yeah, I know there's that story as well about that's often told of the man praying to God that he will come and save him as the waters rise, and a boat comes and a man comes before the waters come. Someone comes past with a car and say, "Well, I'll take you out of here," and he says, "No, no, no, God will save me." And then the waters rise and a boat comes by. He says, "Jump on the boat." He says, "No, no, God will save me." And then the waters get high and a helicopter comes by and he says, "No, no, away you go, God will save me." And he drowns and he comes before God at the end. And he says to God, "You know, did you not save me?" And God said, three times I tried to save you and you ignored all of it. So actually that reminder that for us that God, for theistic folks, okay, that God works for us and the world works for our good, actually through those practical ways that are part of our trusting, hoping, and serving. I'm going to finish the discussion there. We've pretty much run out of time. Just one little prompt from one of our attendees. talking about faith in quarantine of Noah Noah in the ark. Just to share that with you. So can I thank my co-presenters, Rabbi Peter, Troll, Ali. Thank you, Massi, for your preparation. Sorry you weren't able to be with us online. Thank you, all of you, for coming and sharing in this campfire. I hope you have a good Joti. Do stay safe, stay at home, and keep doing good scouting and make good plans for what we'll do when we come back out of this. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Jonathan. Be well. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, Carla.
Yeah, thank you and stay safe.
You want to stay online for a moment?
Bye-bye.